Brothers, sisters, comrades, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting here on a stolen land, exactly like my homeland is a stolen land, a land that has never been ceded, which is always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I would also like to give a big shout out for the Hume for Palestine for organizing this, and for all the organizers who came on board, Free Palestine Melbourne and Victorian Socialists. And to all of you who came here from Hume to make a stance against this filthy place that makes parts of weapons for Israel. Without it, Israel wouldn't have continued to kill our people in Gaza for the last 4 months and counting, still counting. For 4 months, it has been a relentless genocidal assault on Gaza. Netanyahu keep saying, and the Western media keep telling us the narrative is wrong. They say it's conflict between Hamas and Israel. That narrative is completely wrong. Netanyahu is actually obliterating the peaceful inhabitants on Gaza. That's what they have been doing for the past 4 months and counting. They have been refusing any ceasefire, thinking that they will win. Well, actually, instead of winning, they are just killing and slaughtering. And what helps them is companies like this. It is really shameful that Australia and the Labour Party, who is in power now, are in bed with the Zionists. And that's not new. But what's new, that this genocidal assault is in your face and obvious, and despite that, their genocide, their complicity in genocide has been tripled than before. For example, this HTA stands for Heat Treatment Australia. This is one and the only in the world that is accepted to do these kind of pieces for equipment for the fighters of F-35. F-35 is the strike jets combat machines that have been giving wreaking havoc on Gaza at the tune of 2,000 pound bombs. In modern air warfare, Western countries did not use F-35 except in a very rare occasions. One example is when the US used it only once within its 24,000 airstrike when it was trying to bomb ISIS in Syria and in Iraq. Whereas Israel is using it willy-nilly. Last week, the Chief of Staff, Herzl Halevi, has boasted of how much they have been using the F-35 on killing our people. As the comrades before me mentioned and alluded to, Israel is not just a state that is as an apartheid state. All that is correct. It's an apartheid state. It's a colonial settler state. But what makes it more dangerous as a war machine, as my comrades mentioned, is that it is the front dog for the imperialist country, America, UK, France, you know it, you name it.
Australia.
Australia also is within it. If Israel didn't exist, as Joe Biden said, they would have invented it.
Shame.
4 months and counting, with people not only being bombed, they are bombed to shreds. Some people who have found their loved ones, they could find just a hand, or just a piece of their face, or just very little of their belongings. That's what's been happening. It is very ugly. It is very, very horrific. The doctors who have been there and the hospitals haven't been spared, which is in every war according to the international law that Israel thinks is above it. They didn't keep that safe. So mosques, churches, hospitals, medical centers, schools, UNRWA or UNRWA places centers have been bombed. And deliberately, that's correct. As our co-host just said, Omar, there is no place safe in Gaza. Gaza is only 360 kilometers, hosting 2.2 million people before all this killing machine happened. Now we have 35,000 people killed. That's if we don't count those who are still buried under the rubble. This is a horrific massacre. Doctors have been rounded up. UNRWA workers have been rounded up. A lot of people have been arrested for 1, 2, 3 months, and many went through horrific extrajudicial executions. That is what we are up against. We are up against Netanyahu, who is at the head of the most right-wing Israeli government, and it is backed to the hilt by the American imperialism that didn't have the decency when there was the vote for the ceasefire to vote for the ceasefire. We need ceasefire now. We need companies like this that profit from making weapons. And I know HTA is able to do health medical equipment instead of making war pieces. Let them do that. Health and education before destruction. Health and education before imperialism. Health and education before Israel. And despite all the sadness, despite all the grief that we are all going through, seeing babies, seeing families torn apart, seeing total families obliterated from the civil records, despite all that, I'd like us to end on a message of hope. The message of hope comes in the words of the poet Mahmoud Darwish. I'll translate it to you. He wrote it during the siege of Beirut in 1982. It still rings to this day in my head. He said, "We are writing to you from Beirut," and he is addressing the Israeli soldier, "to ask you which one of us is besieging the other. Which one of us is besieging the other?" When asked, "What do you mean with that?" he said, "Well, this Israeli soldier who was born in a tank, went to school in a tank, went to university in a tank, got married in a tank, had children in a tank. We are more freer than him because we have the dream of liberation. We have the dream of the future. Comrades, brothers and sisters, Keep the fight on. This is a very just fight.